This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. An Ontario judge has sentenced former fashion mogul Peter Nygard to 11 years in prison. Nygard was convicted last November on 4 counts of sexual assault. Jamie Strachan has the latest from Toronto.
Justice Robert Goldstein called disgraced fashion mogul Peter Nygard a sexual predator who used his position of power and wealth to take advantage of women, calling it a Canadian success story gone very wrong.
Justice Goldstein sentenced Mr. Nygard accordingly and found him to have committed these sexual assaults in a way that makes him, as we have been saying, recognizes the description of him as a sexual predator.
In the sentencing, the judge called Nygard a narcissist who felt entitled to do whatever he wanted. Nygard was convicted of sexually assaulting 4 women in the private bedroom of his Toronto fashion headquarters between the 1980s and mid-2000s. One was just 16. Victims advocate Shannon Moroney read a statement from one of the women.
We did this to ensure every victim of sexual assault will remember this trial and feel the strength and confidence to come forward and not be threatened by social status or money.
Dozens of women from around the world have alleged they were assaulted by Nygard. He faces charges in Manitoba, Quebec, and the United States. Some of those alleged victims were here in court for the sentencing.
Many of us have waited for this day for quite a few years. For me, I'm a 21-year survivor. I've been waiting for this day for 21 years.
The 83-year-old wore a black Canada Goose parka with a hood over his head, his bearded face shielded by a visor. He declined to address the court. The judge mostly rejected calls for leniency based on Nygard's age and failing health. Nygard's lawyer promises to appeal the conviction and the sentence.
So he's just going to continue to defend himself where he can, appeal where he can, and continue to maintain his innocence in all of these matters.
For Nygard, this marks the end of a stunning fall. Once a rich and powerful player in the fashion world, now likely to spend his final years in prison. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
The late Kathy Merrick is receiving a rare honor. The Grand Chief of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs died suddenly Friday. Now she'll be laid in state at the legislature. A tribute believed only to have happened one other time in our province in recent memory. The CBC's Ian Fraze has the details.
I haven't come to words yet, and I don't think anybody has.
As leaders come to grips with Kathy Merrick's sudden death, the provincial government is helping people pay their respects. Merrick's body will lie in state at the legislature later this week, after she'll be buried in her home community of Pimachikamak, Cree Nation.
And not everybody is going to have a chance to come to Pimachikamak to mourn her. And so we want to have a forum for you to express your grief and an opportunity for you to pay her tribute.
Manitoba's former chief of protocol says the recognition for Merrick speaks volumes.
It is a very special event for those that the government feels should be recognized as such.
In recent memory, only Elijah Harper has been given the honor, back in 2013. The former MLA stopped constitutional amendments that excluded Indigenous issues. Now Manitoba is extending the same tribute to Merrick. Community leaders gathered last Saturday to remember her. Donnie McKay is a Pimachikamak councillor.
Very great honor for our Grand Chief.
Last Friday, Merrick collapsed outside Winnipeg's law courts, only moments before she denounced the acquittal of a corrections officer charged in the 2021 death of Headingley inmate William Amo.
The chief medical examiner ruled it a homicide. Yet today's decision tells the world that the rights and dignity of First Nation people, and that a ruling by a chief medical examiner can be disregarded without consequence. So that bothers me.
When Merrick was elected Grand Chief in 2022, she vowed to work hard for her people. The Premier says she succeeded.
To her final moments, she fought for First Nations people.
The National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations considers Merrick to be a role model.
She's given our women hope to be who we are, to wear your ribbon skirt proudly.
Other public events to remember Merrick's life are planned. On Tuesday at 7 in the evening, there's a candlelight vigil outside the law courts. Then on Wednesday at 6:30 in the morning, a sunrise ceremony at Odena Circle at the Forks. The funeral in Pimachikamak with family is planned for a later date. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Winnipeg police have charged a second person in connection to a crash that killed a cyclist in June. On June 6th, a 61-year-old cyclist died after he was hit by a car around 7 a.m. on Wellington Crescent and Coburn. A 19-year-old man was arrested and charged with dangerous operation of a motor vehicle causing death and failing to remain at the scene. Today, police say they've charged a second person, an 18-year-old man who was in the passenger seat. He's charged with failing to remain at the scene. Over 2 months have passed since a home exploded in Transcona, but people in the area say they're frustrated with the lack of answers and progress on rebuilding. Camrose Bay was rocked by an explosion on June 26th. It scattered debris blocks away. The incident left one home destroyed and several other structures heavily damaged. Carl Lent's home was directly beside the blast and had to be demolished last month. He and his family are living in a nearby rental.
Still just devastation. Lives are ruined, and yeah, it's just unearthed. I don't even know how to explain it, really. Feelings are just run wild every day. You look at this, I mean, what's taken so long? Why did it happen? How did it happen?
Lent says he's still waiting to rebuild, but the process is moving slow. Meanwhile, Winnipeg police say the investigation into the incident continues, but say there are no updates. It's been a busy year for Winnipeg police officers, and the service expects that trend to continue. The latest budget update from Winnipeg Police shows overtime costs have soared this year. CBC's Cameron McLean reports.
Whether it's investigating homicides, monitoring protests, or tackling chronic retail theft, Winnipeg Police have spent a lot of hours on the streets. Overtime costs this year are projected to reach $11.8 million, a 57% increase over last year. Police Board Chair Marcus Chambers says the overtime levels are not sustainable.
In terms of violent crime, in terms of the public order events, those are all things that continue to happen, quite likely right through till the end of the year. That, again, we need a longer-term strategy to ensure that we have the ability to effectively manage these cost controls.
Homicides, street demonstrations, and a retail theft initiative are all factors driving police officers to working more hours. So far, there have been 29 homicides in Winnipeg this year. Also, police officers spent nearly 6,900 hours attending protests and other special events in the second quarter, more than double the previous 3 months. Despite funding from the province to support the retail theft initiative, the service projects to be over budget by more than $3 million. Chambers says previous strategies to control costs like vacancy management won't work anymore.
We're delaying recruit classes, and right now we can't afford to do that. We need to get officers trained, and that's part of the 24 officers that are going to be added to foot patrols, getting them trained and then up to speed so that they can be deployed.
The board will discuss the report at its meeting next Monday. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Red River Exhibition has a plan to redevelop John Bloomberg Sports Complex in Headingley. The City of Winnipeg owns the complex. It has baseball diamonds and green space. It doesn't include the golf course next door. The Red River X wants to lease the complex and redevelop it into spaces for a variety of sports. The city says no one else has offered to lease the land. A report about the offer is expected next year. Parks Canada is removing a curtain that was supposed to contain zebra mussels in one area of Clear Lake. The curtain was completed on August 6 to surround an area called Boat Cove. Heavy winds pushed the curtain away 2 days later. Parks Canada says it's damaged and can't be repaired or replaced this fall, so it's being taken out. Zebra mussels were first found in the lake in November. Riley Laychuk in now for our first check on weather. And Riley, it feels like summer is not over yet. This does not feel like fall. My goodness.
I've been calling this summer 2.0, Brittany, and temperatures, as we saw today, are going to continue for the next several days yet, which we'll get into. 29 degrees in Winnipeg right now. South winds at 31 at the moment. We've seen a few gusts up to about 40 or 50 through the afternoon today. Pressure has been falling across the province. Yes, temperatures in the 30s for Brandon and Dauphin this hour, 32 degrees in Swan River. Even into northern Manitoba, 28 in the Paw, 25s for Gillam and Thompson. We have seen several records in the province fall unofficially so far today, and that trend continues into the next several days. 14 degrees overnight tonight in Winnipeg. Normally we should be at about 7 overnight for this time of the year. Mainly sunny to start tomorrow as well, with a 19-degree temperature first thing in the morning. This should be our daytime high for this time of the year. So that goes to show how warm we're looking at tomorrow. 30 degrees, Brittany, risk of thunderstorms and a bit hazy in the afternoon. We'll talk about those record high temperatures and how long this heat lasts when I come back in a few minutes.
For September, I'll take it.
Yeah,
Thanks,
exactly.
Riley.
You're welcome.
In 1974, 32 women from across Canada made history as the first female officers sworn into the RCMP. More on Troop 17 after the break. It's been 50 years since the first group of women were sworn in as RCMP candidates. This coming weekend, graduates of the class known as Troop 17 will come together. A reunion will mark the occasion and the obstacles they overcame to become officers. And a Winnipeg woman who helped break down barriers will be among those taking part. CBC's Josh Crabb reports.
This is me new on the job at the Winnipeg Airport as an airport police person.
Carol Briggs looks back at photos and news clippings, marking a milestone for women with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Of course, it was a male-dominated area, but I just thought it might be really interesting work.
Briggs, who was between jobs, was among 32 women in the country who signed up to become RCMP officers nearly 50 years ago. They made up what's known as Troop 17, an all-female class of cadets. The women trained in Regina before graduating and beginning their careers in policing.
A lot of people referred to us as Trailblazers, and it made the news quite a bit at the time, even starting with our training.
Briggs says they were given men's pants, which had to be tailored. Some of the women were given purses for their pistols instead of holsters like the men.
That's me there.
After working at the airport, Briggs went on to a job in intelligence.
There were times when we had to surveil motorcycle gangs, and that was a little scary, along with exciting.
Her wife, Gail Emlott, feels it's important to celebrate the group.
I don't think people realize that 50 years ago was the first troop, and that was, in terms of history, that's not a long time, you know, to allow women in.
According to the RCMP, approximately 1/5 of its members today are women. But historically, female officers have faced gender-based discrimination, harassment, and assault. More than $125 million was paid out to 2,300 members as part of a class action settlement, and a report called on the RCMP to address those issues in the workplace.
Some of them were unfortunate enough to work, I guess, with some men who weren't so accepting.
Long hours and overtime eventually wore on Briggs, and she left the RCMP.
I'm very grateful to have worked with all the women that I did in training, and I'm very proud of them all.
Their perseverance and contributions to the police force will be celebrated in Regina this coming weekend.
It's kind of hard to believe.
At a reunion, bringing together the group who helped pave the way for women in policing. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Winnipeg man has been charged with human smuggling in connection to 8 people who crossed into Canada from the United States. RCMP say it happened near Gretna more than 2 weeks ago on the evening of August 22nd. Mounties say they became aware that people were walking into Canada and found 8 people, all of African descent, who'd been picked up by a lone driver in a rental car. Police arrested all 9 of them following a traffic stop. They were turned over to the Canada Border Services Agency. The driver, a 35-year-old Somali national living in Winnipeg, has been charged and released. He's expected in court in Emerson next month. A Winnipeg taxation expert who spent 4 decades as a member of the Manitoba Progressive Conservatives is mulling a run for party leader. Trevor Sprague says he'll make a decision by the end of the week. He previously ran as a federal candidate for the Canadian Alliance, a Conservative party. He's married to Jenny Motkaluk, a 2-time Winnipeg mayoral candidate. So far, the only candidate to declare a run is Abi Khan, the MLA for Fort White. The deadline to submit nomination packages is October 15th. The party will choose its next leader on April 26th. The Saskatchewan NDP is making election promises that might sound familiar to Manitobans, like cutting the gas tax, creating a school nutrition program, and providing rebates for security equipment. Those were all promises the Manitoba NDP made in last year's election. According to the election campaign director for the Saskatchewan NDP, it's common for New Democrats to draw inspiration from other provinces, but says the similarities with the Manitoba campaign are intentional.
And that's because they were great ideas. And in many cases, they've worked and they've made a lot of difference for people. And people in Saskatchewan are facing issues that are not different from Manitobans. So we're faced with the high cost of living and an affordability crisis, a healthcare crisis.
The election in Saskatchewan still hasn't been called, but the vote must be held on or before October 28th. The NDP is looking to unseat the Saskatchewan party. Pimachikamak Cree Nation has taken out newspaper ads asking licensed moose hunters to stay away. The ads say the First Nation doesn't consent or give permission for anyone to use any provincial moose hunting licenses in its traditional territory. Chief David Monius says moose meat means a lot to the community in a time of high food prices and increased rates of diabetes.
We're just trying to ensure that our way of life and our resources, the wildlife, is protected, but at the same time available for our use.
Pimachikamak wants moose hunters to return their licenses to the province. The ads appeared after Pimachikamak was denied an expedited court hearing for an injunction. The community wants a court order to quash moose hunting licenses and the province's right to issue them. Riley's back now, and Riley, it is not just hot outside, it is hot in here because it is just summer continuing. This doesn't feel like September. People are in shorts, they're in dresses, t-shirts. It's amazing.
And I'm in a suit and jeans.
You're inside though, yeah. But you're probably going to be switching that out in the coming days,
Yes,
at least during the day.
After the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some record high temperatures, Brittany. Have a look at some of these numbers that fell today unofficially, just based on some of the numbers that I looked at through the afternoon hours here today. So Swan River, 34.1 degrees this afternoon, breaking that record from 2011 at just about 32. Dauphin, 32 degrees this afternoon. McCreary, 31. Also, Dauphin losing a record there from 1963. Couple honorable mentions. Pinawa, 4/10 of a degree away from that record. Winnipeg, in case you're wondering, we got to just about 31 this afternoon. Few degrees off that record, but nonetheless still warm out there throughout the afternoon hours here today. 30 in Roblin as well this afternoon. Brandon getting to 32 degrees, 25 in Thompson this afternoon. And even into northwestern Ontario, normally we should be at about 18, 19 degrees. Some of these temperatures, some 10 degrees above seasonal for this time of the year. And this trend, as I mentioned earlier, looking to continue as we get into the next several days, at least the next week, according to some of the longer range models here. Satellite and radar, not a lot to see. A little bit of cloud. You can kind of see where the high pressure ridge is kind of built over Manitoba right now. It's kind of pushing some of that cloud a little bit further to the north. A little bit of cloud, maybe a little instability in through parts of Saskatchewan. We get the best chance of some thunderstorms here in Manitoba as we get into the day on Tuesday. So Tuesday starts mainly sunny skies, a little bit of thin high weather cloud once again early in the day tomorrow. Expect that to continue. That's the trend that we get throughout the day. I stopped here at 4 o'clock on Tuesday, mainly sunny skies, but this is when we have the best potential for some thunderstorms. This particular model not quite showing, depicting that at least from the precipitation side, but the chances are that we could see a few rumbles of thunder, particularly into parts of south central Manitoba, which I'll get into in just a moment. As we head into Thursday, there is a hint that we could see some weather on the horizon. We'll be keeping our eye on that in the coming days. All right, storm energy. This is what I wanted to show you as we head into the day on Tuesday. So a slim chance we could see some thunderstorm activity early in the day, but watch what happens as we get later into the afternoon hours here. The storm energy map, this particular forecast model indicating some of these brighter colors here, the ingredients will be there for some thunderstorms through the Pembina Valley, Portage la Prairie into the Red River Valley, later afternoon into the evening hours. So we'll be keeping our eye on that tomorrow. Could be a bit hazy again tomorrow as well with the risk of thunderstorms in the afternoon. And Brittany, we're looking at temperatures closer to that 30-degree mark and the sunshine continuing as we get into the weekend. I'll have your dog walking forecast coming up later on.
Even some nice overnights there,
exactly.
too.
Yeah.
Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
Still ahead, an election flyer is causing a stir in Manitoba as it featured NDP's by-election candidate in front of a Palestinian flag. The reactions when we return. Stay with us. An NDP by-election flyer is causing a stir. It shows Craig Sauvé, the party's candidate for a Montreal riding, in front of a Palestinian flag. The caption, which is written in French, says a vote for him is a vote to, quote, stop the genocide in Gaza. Olivia Stefanovic has more.
Just a week before Montrealers head to the polls in this hotly contested riding, one of the leading candidates is getting attention for sending a new campaign message.
It is a positive development that political parties are starting to see support for Palestine as an electoral benefit rather than a liability.
But the move is also receiving condemnation.
To have anybody, any candidate for any party, putting out literature with a flag of a foreign entity seems to us to be unacceptable.
And political opponents are pouncing too. Conservative Deputy Leader Melissa Lantsman asking on X, formerly known as Twitter, whether NDP leader Jagmeet Singh approved of the pamphlet.
The radical NDP is once again dividing Canadians with incendiary and extremist rhetoric that puts the Jewish community at risk.
The backlash prompting the NDP to go on the defense, saying it's, quote, ludicrous to suggest that when a politician is seen with another flag, it's un-Canadian, pointing to photos of Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, photographed with flags from other countries, though none of the images were produced in an election pamphlet.
NDP may do whatever they want.
Criticism also coming from the Bloc Québécois, a party with its hopes set high for next week's by-election too. A competitive race with the conflict in Gaza front and center.
There's a lot of people who have family in that region. Who live in Montreal.
This columnist says the NDP's decision is a strategic move after more than 50 Arab and Muslim Liberal staffers signed a letter announcing they will not campaign for a party that, quote, excludes us and our values.
And so that's what they're trying to do, is trying to basically win over the Liberals by being bolder in their stance on the war in Gaza.
With polls showing the NDP has a chance of winning LaSalle and Verdun, New Democrats will find out if their strategy pays off next Monday night. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Ottawa.
A funeral was held in a Philadelphia suburb today for NHL star Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew. The men died when a vehicle slammed into them as they were riding their bikes in New Jersey on August 29th. They were in town for their sister's wedding. Matthew's wife paid tribute to her late husband.
Matthew is and will always be the best part of me. He loved me so deeply and would always show it, and I pray to God he knew how much I loved him. I truly can't believe how lucky I was to be loved by him. He was hardworking, patient, kind, gentle, attentive, funny. He was my safe place.
Many members of the hockey community attended the service, including NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman. Johnny joined the Calgary Flames in 2013 and went on to become an All-Star. He signed with the Columbus Blue Jackets 2 years ago. Earlier in his career, he played alongside Matthew at Boston College. The 43-year-old driver of the vehicle faces several charges, including consumption of alcohol in a motor vehicle. He's in jail ahead of his hearing, which is in 4 days. 2 men have been sentenced to 6.5 years in prison for their roles in the 2022 border blockade in Coutts, Alberta. It was one of several that popped up across the country, protesting COVID-19 rules and vaccine mandates. Chris Carbert was convicted of public mischief and possessing a firearm dangerous to the public peace. Anthony Olenek received the same sentence on the same charges and was also convicted of possessing a pipe bomb. A jury had found them not guilty of the most serious charge they faced, conspiracy to murder police officers. Neither men will have to serve their full sentences. Both were given nearly 4 years credit for time they've already spent in custody. Air Canada says it's making plans to suspend flights next week as the company and the pilots union remain far apart in negotiations. If no agreement is reached, either side could issue a strike or lockout notice as early as Sunday, September 15th. Wages remain a key sticking point. The company has called the Airline Pilots Association's demands excessive. The union says Air Canada should come to the bargaining table instead of threatening to disrupt flights. ALPA represents more than 5,200 pilots at Canada's largest carrier. Air Canada and Air Canada Rouge operate about 670 flights daily. Coming up, how fraudsters are impersonating legitimate taxis using fake roof signs bought from online retailers. What the scammers are after and what's being done about it after the break.
Rest of the competition right now is the ability to detect at a precancerous lesion stage. So we really catch at a very early stage, and that is really remarkable, because then you can remove those precursor lesions and hence prevent colorectal cancer.
Something we could be seeing very, very soon. So what do you hope comes from your research?
We hope that we are able to push this technology through commercialization all the way to the market, so that it can be used by common public or asymptomatic population here in Canada as well as worldwide. And it would be something great to see a test coming out which is made in Canada from Manitoba. And yeah, so that's what we are hoping.
Incredible work. Thank you so much for your time, Doctor.
Thank you so much.
Riley Lachuk is back. And Riley, we were talking about that hurricane that's wreaking havoc in other parts of the U.S. Get us into a little bit about what they're seeing and what that path is really going to be taking as well.
Yeah, we're really looking at winds with this one picking up significantly, Brittany, as we head into the next few days here. So here's a look at where Francine is right now, just off the coast of Mexico. Right now, winds sustained at 100 kilometers an hour. You can see on the top here along the coastline with Louisiana, hurricane warnings already in place, tropical storm warnings and tropical storm watches along the coast with Texas. So here's what happens as we get into the next couple of days. Wednesday, 1 in the morning, making landfall off the coast of Louisiana. Sustained winds, 160 kilometers an hour at a Category 2 hurricane. Very quickly losing strength as it makes its way up into Mississippi and into parts of Tennessee, Nebraska as well. We see that downgrading back down to a low pressure system. So we are looking at this packing quite a punch, as mentioned earlier, in parts of the Gulf Coast of the United States, where we could see some pretty significant impacts with storm surge as we get into the week here, particularly on Wednesday. Okay, your dog walking forecast. Maddie and Louie are our pups for tonight, courtesy of Susan. Thank you for sending this lovely picture, and you can send yours into talkback at cbc.ca. We're starting at 19 degrees tomorrow morning, southeast winds at 20 first thing, up to 30 in the afternoon here in Winnipeg once again, and by the evening we're looking at 24 degrees. Sunset now at 7:53 p.m. So we're looking at the sun going down quite a bit earlier than it was at this time in August per se, even though we're keeping some of those August-like temperatures. Overnight temperatures look like this: 18 in Dauphin tonight, 16 in Brandon, 14 in Winnipeg, 14 in Dryden as well into northern Manitoba. Temperatures in the double digits still overnight, 15 in Flin Flon, a far cry from where we were last week. You recall Shamattawa, Thompson getting down into the single digits. Not the case tonight. Starting the day tomorrow in the double digits, and that continues as we get through the rest of the day on Tuesday. 19 in Thompson by noon into the afternoon. Temperatures really hanging around that 19, 20 degree mark through much of the north. Could see a couple of stray showers through Churchill through the morning into the afternoon tomorrow at 17 degrees. Into southern Manitoba, waking up at 16 first thing in the morning through Westman. Up to 26 by noon in Brandon, topping out close to or at 30 degrees for much of the south once again tomorrow. In Brittany, northwestern Ontario, also looking at temperatures staying significantly warmer than seasonal for this time of the year. Your 7-day forecast is coming up.
Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
Still ahead, the Métis Nation of Alberta wants to make sure 2 bumblebee species at risk remain on the prairies. Plus, Riley Lachuk is back with a last check on our forecast. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. The Métis Nation of Alberta is on the hunt for bumblebees. Over the next 3 years, their conservation and climate change team will be conducting bee surveys at their Indigenous protected and conserved area an hour east of Edmonton. The work being done now is to make sure that 2 bumblebee species at risk remain in the prairies. Stephanie Cram has more on their efforts.
Okay, so I start the timer now, so that's 12:36. Yes.
Tiffany Harrison sets a 2-hour timer for a bumblebee survey. With nets in hand, members of the Métis Nation of Alberta's Environment and Climate Change team roam a stretch of land in Lamont County.
So we kind of just wander around until we see certain things in bloom, and then we might sit and wait a bit to see if anything lands there, or you might just come across some good activity on flowers.
She spots a patch of yellow flowers, invasive to the land.
So all this yellow here is perennial sow thistle, which is not a native species, but it is something that we do see bumblebees using. So in that kind of respect, doesn't make it a terrible plant.
This is the nation's first Indigenous protected and conserved area. Jordan York, conservation manager with the MNA, says the idea of protecting bumblebees came straight from the Métis citizens of Alberta.
They really want to protect everything and keep things very natural and functioning as a healthy ecosystem. And so the bees are a part of that. They're pollinators. They're making sure that those flowers that inspire Métis floral beadwork are essentially out there on the landscape and still there to, provide for all the other animals out here as well.
The team is out to collect any bumblebee they can find. Harrison spots a red-belted bumblebee worker sitting on a flower.
So when you're netting flying insects, once she notices that we have her here, usually you are supposed to hold the net right up.
The team traps the bees in vials, being careful not to be stung.
So this looks like a red-belted bumblebee worker.
The team notes which species they found and what flowers they prefer to pollinate on, later returning them to the land. All this while keeping an eye out for 2 species at risk, including the gypsy cuckoo bumblebee.
This is Bombus bohemicus is its Latin name. So it is listed as endangered federally under the Species at Risk Act. So pretty high level there. So that's why we were really excited to find one last year, and we have found one this year. It's one of the big reasons we kind of started this project.
And a second species, a little less elusive.
Our second species is the yellow-banded bumblebee, or Bombus terricola is its Latin name. So that species is listed as special concern, so much lower tier than our gypsy cuckoo, but still really important for us to monitor and be proactive.
Of the over 800 bumblebees they've found this year, only 15 of them were yellow-banded bumblebees. But what is causing these populations to decline? Researchers say climate change is changing their ecosystem, leaving species living in areas where heat waves are frequent and severe more at risk.
Bumblebees are not very heat tolerant. A long time ago, maybe 30 million years ago, they evolved under cool or temperate conditions, and they have never really, as a group, evolved the capacity to do well in really hot weather.
In the face of growing urbanization, Harrison says it's important to recognize how pivotal bumblebees are to our ecosystem.
And bumblebees are extremely efficient pollinators. In general, bees are, because they have specialized structures and hairs to help transport our pollen between flowers, which, turns into pollination and gets us our beautiful flowers and our crops and everything we love, plants we harvest from, berries we eat.
She says by protecting and conserving their lands, bumblebees can continue to call Alberta home for years to come. Stephanie Cram, CBC News, Lamont County.
Well, here's your day planner for your Tuesday. We're looking at a warm start to the day tomorrow and another hot one, as I showed you earlier in the show. For your day on Tuesday. 19 first thing in the morning, southeast winds at 20, a little bit breezy through the afternoon. Again, nothing like we saw today with those southeast winds gusting up to 50 through the afternoon today, up to 30 degrees tomorrow afternoon, and that hot pattern continues throughout the rest of the work week. 26 for Wednesday. Another windy one for both Thursday and Friday. Temperatures right around 30 degrees, 27 on the way for Saturday, 28 for both Sunday and Monday. And the sunshine and the dry weather continues into the weekend and into next week. Teddy bears were all over Assiniboine Park on the weekend. Thousands of young kids and their stuffed animals went for a checkup, of course, for the 35th Teddy Bear Picnic.
It was the first time the event's been held since the pandemic, and the first time the picnic has happened in September. Here's your Daily Lift.
You're gonna change it for the pink one and come back. 3, 2, 1, go. These guys love it. They come through here. Some of them are gonna get a toothbrush. Some of them are loving the activity. They love getting the stickers and the passports. So I think the future looks bright for scientists in Manitoba.
Let's check his tummy. Does that sound okay to you?
Bring your teddy bear in and you learn about what are the discoveries. So you could say, my teddy bear's got a broken arm, what can we do? So you could go in there and look through a microscope to see how we're gonna help repair that broken arm. In my tent, you're going to learn how to be physically active and learn a little bit of movement so that we can prevent diabetes or prevent high blood pressure. High five. Nice work.
He's doing pretty good. He just got the cast because he's really old. He's like 100.
Mine broke its arm. This is Bubbles and it broke its leg.
Oh yeah. So like they had to take care of her. They had to give her syringes. So they had to like give her vaccines.
Huge day for our community. Today, not only did we bring back the teddy bear picnic, which has been in hibernation for almost 5 years, but we also let the community know that over the last 5 years, as part of our Better Futures campaign, we have raised almost $87 million. It's the largest donor-driven campaign in the history of this province. And so we're so humbled by the generosity of Manitobans.
And everybody went home with a smile.
Yeah, that's incredible. 87 million donor-funded dollars that are going to be doing so much good work here in Manitoba. And I love seeing the little cast and everything.
I was going to say
the
that.
Teddy bears.
Even though it was in September, great weather for that event yesterday as well.
Perfect.
Close to 30 degrees for that high.
Yeah,
yesterday,
this whole week, if you've got events, this is the week to have it. Get outside, enjoy that sunshine.
Drink lots of water. Don't forget the water.
But enjoy the heat on these September evenings. Have a wonderful night. We'll see you back
tomorrow.
here tomorrow.